Thank you very much for having myself and Hannah, first of all. My name is Karen Bubb. I am the year one coordinator of the primary initial teacher education course. And I'll explain the course a little bit more in detail in a moment. I know you've been looking at different pathways to professions. So during this presentation, I will talk to you about different ways to get into teaching and the different roles within teaching, because it's not just as simple and as straightforward as being a teacher. Just click through my slide, sorry. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is actually being a primary teacher. Now, Hannah, who has really quickly joined me from her sessions in university today, is just going to share a little bit with you about being a trainee teacher and what she's been doing so far on the course, the best bits about the course, what she's enjoying most. And anything else, Hannah, you think is relevant. So, Hannah, if you want to put your camera on, that would be great. Or you've got it on, have you?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully you can see me.
Brilliant. So go for it, Hannah.
So I'm Hannah. I'm in a second year primary initial teacher education course. I had Karen as my lead last year. So uni are really good at being supportive, and the whole course as a whole is really rounded. So it covers every single subject, all areas. Not only does it cover subjects, it covers your development personally as a teacher and how you act professionally as a teacher, which is really important because as a primary teacher, it's not just all about the subject knowledge. It's important to be that well-rounded teacher that can approach situations in different ways, but professionally at the same time. So, and to do this, they've got very balanced timetables. So some days you might be looking at yourself developing as a teacher, but you then might have a lesson on science, and then you might have a practical DT session, which I've loved. You get to try out all the different things you would do in a classroom yourself. So we've made stir fries, we've made monsters, we've made robots, we've made everything that you would do in the classroom. So it's really good to get that hands-on approach. And in science this week, we were doing experiments and actually trying them for ourselves before we obviously would do them in the classroom. So it's really good that we do get that hands-on approach. And obviously I was online for a lot of last year, but this year being in person, it's we can really clearly see how supportive the uni is. We had so much support last year online, but this year there is even more support. You have your own personal tutor who will stay with you for the 3 years or however long, whichever pathway you choose to do. You will have that tutor to give you support on assignments, on in general your personal life. They will just always be there, and even if they aren't your personal tutor, all of the lecturers are so friendly, and there's always that willingness to help you. They're always there. They'll give you extra time at the end of the session or ask to meet you at lunch. If you need any support, there is always a lecturer there that would happily give up their time to help you, which I found really useful because when I first joined uni, I found the thought of assignments very daunting because I'd gone through A levels, so I'd done more exams than coursework. So it was a bit of a shock when I was suddenly having to write essays, but there was that support there for me straight away. And there's a good mix as well of placement and lectures. So we had a placement last year, and because we'd had that good balance of lectures before, I felt really confident and ready to do my placement. And the placement team at uni are also really supportive. So I had my own tutor that would support me while I was on placement that I could contact if I had any issues, or if I just wanted to share that I'd had a good day, and so show her my lesson plans. So you have that support constantly, whether even if you're not at uni. And I know from people that have graduated that even once they've graduated, they have still got the support from the uni, which is really lovely to hear. As well as the lectures being so well rounded, they're also really engaging. Like I said, they're very hands-on, and I think a lot of it is because the lecturers have all been teachers. They know what is engaging and interesting for us in the classroom, so they're able to make the lectures really enjoyable. There's also always options to have tutorials with your lecturers for extra support if you need that, which I think is really nice to have that to fall back onto if it's needed. And uni have also put on events such as, we had a behaviour conference last year, which was really, really interesting. So that was a day filled with different events that we could choose which ones we went to. So there was a head teacher from a pupil referral unit speaking, there was head teachers from different schools or people in different roles that weren't just your normal primary school teachers. So it was really interesting to see how different you can actually go from this degree. So you don't necessarily have to end up being a primary school teacher. There is so many different pathways you can take, which really opened my eyes as to what I would want to do with this degree after. But there's also a good balance with your personal life as well as uni. We do have a lot of lectures, but there is still that balance. You have your evenings free. We get Wednesdays off, and if you like sports or any other activities, there is so many societies at Worcester. I'm personally in the cheerleading one and absolutely love it. But there is an education society which you can join, and they offer courses like first aid courses, mental health courses, which I think are really important to do as a teacher. And the fact they offer them is even better. And you can do that on Wednesdays. There's also football games going on, rugby games, especially now restrictions are starting to lift. I know yesterday the arena was in full swing with basketball games, netball games, football. So it's really nice to have that day off to go and enjoy sports, and there's the opportunity on Wednesday evenings to socialise with different societies as well. So there's a really, really good balance at the uni of everything you can do. I think I've kind of summarised it very quickly.
How, Hannah? Yeah, do you just want to say, Hannah, whether you were living or commuting? Because that might be what some students are thinking about.
Yeah, so I lived in Halls last year, and I live in a house with people. I lived in Halls last year. I live in Worcester now. So yeah, but I have a lot of friends that commute, so it doesn't make a difference commuting or living at uni really. I love living at uni for the independence, but half of my lecture group commute, so there's a real big mix.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I really appreciate your time, and if there's any questions that I can't answer, I will be dropping you an email later and asking for your help.
Okay.
Thank you very
Brilliant,
much,
Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Hannah. See you again.
Bye.
Bye. So Hannah there has just given you a really sort of good synopsis of her time, short time at university. So of course she's only been with us. She's just in her second year, and last year, as she said, we had to do quite a lot of our sessions online, but we are so pleased that we are back to all face-to-face teaching, and it's wonderful to have the trainee students back in our classrooms. So I'm not going to show you this video here, but this is one of our trainees, or she was a trainee, who is now teaching in school in Worcester. In fact, she's into her second school. And it just describes really what the day in the life of a primary teacher is like. And Taylor, who stars in this video for us, she did our degree course, so our 3-year degree course, and at the end of it she was qualified as a teacher and was employed by one of her schools that she actually did her placement on. So I'd recommend to you going and have a look at this video at another time, just to give you a better idea of some of the things that she would be doing in her sort of day-to-day teaching role. Some of you may have been in school already through work experience, and of course you'll perhaps remember the time when you went to school yourself. So let's have a think about some of the courses that we offer at the University of Worcester. Okay, so we offer a degree course. So this degree is a 3-year course. It's a Bachelor of Arts with honours, and it's primary initial teacher education. And the QTS bit is the really important bit. It's the qualified teacher status. So you might be interested in teaching and you want to be able to leave university and go straight into a teaching job. You need to make sure that the course that you're applying for has got that QTS with it, because some universities offer a teacher training course, but it doesn't have that qualified teacher status. So it's really important, wherever you're looking at going, that you look for those 3 letters. So you can do the degree with us, 3 years, you're qualified, and you can go into school as a teacher. That's the route that I took many moons ago. Or you do a PGCE, which some of you would have heard. So this is a postgraduate certificate in education. Now you can choose to do your PGCE in primary teaching or secondary teaching, and we offer both of those at the university. Now to enter onto a PGCE, you need to have done a degree, what we call an undergraduate degree, in a subject. So maybe you're really interested in English, maybe you're a mathematician, maybe you love your geography, your history, your art, and you go off to university and you study art for 3 years and you have your degree. At the end of that, you might think, actually, I'd really like to pass on my passion and my knowledge for art, and you might decide that you want to be a teacher. In order to get your qualified teacher status, you can then do a PGCE, which is a year, but in fact, it's probably only about 9 months, really. It's from the September to the July. And within that 9 months, you learn everything you need to learn about teaching your knowledge of your subject. So you've already got that subject knowledge. We do the teaching, we do the showing you how you would teach that in school. And that can be primary or secondary. Most of what I'll talk today about is about primary, but it's relevant to secondary. There isn't a degree course for secondary, so you can't do the same as the primary initial teacher education. You can't do a 3-year degree in secondary education and then be a teacher. You have to do your undergraduate degree in whichever subject you choose, and then you do your PGCE secondary on top of that. So that again is about 9 months. And that includes going out into schools as well. So the PGCE is just a very condensed course. As you can imagine, it's very hectic. So let's have a look at some of the courses. So we talked about, or Hannah mentioned about, lots of different pathways. So for our primary undergraduate degree, so this is a 3-year course, we do an early years pathway, which specialises in teaching children aged 3 to 7 years. We also offer a later years pathway, which is if you would like to teach children in the generic primary years from ages 5 to 11. Our early years specialists go on to placements in nurseries, reception classes, year 1 and year 2 classes, whereas our later years students go into placements throughout the primary ages, so they don't just focus on one in particular. Some of our students who choose the early years pathway are those that are particularly interested in perhaps going to work in nurseries. Once they qualify, maybe they think they have an idea that they would like to run a nursery and be the lead teacher. That's the sort of pathway that they choose if they would like a career in early years. Later years is more generic. However, we know lots of students that have been with us that have specialised in early years and then have still gone on to teach throughout the primary years. It doesn't just say you're only qualified to teach the 3 to 7 years. You would be still qualified to teach primary. So that is 2 pathways there. Then we have the PGCE, and remembering you've got to do your degree before you get to this. We offer an early years pathway, a later years pathway, and then we also offer a PE specialism pathway. So quite a lot of our PGCE students have been at university, and actually most have been at the University of Worcester. They've been doing a sports science degree or a coaching degree, all sorts of different sports related degrees, and they decide then that they would like to be a PE teacher, whether that's in secondary or in primary, and they then decide to come to us on the PE pathway. School Direct is slightly different. This is where you train predominantly in school. So we manage, we've got about 100 students that are currently doing the School Direct pathway. So they do most of their learning on the job, if you like, whilst they're in school, and they come to university for shorter amounts of time, but they're still expected to do all the same assignments. So it suits some people, doesn't suit other people. Then we've got the secondary PGCE teaching, and there's a range of subjects. If you want to be a food and nutrition teacher of secondary, then there is that route there for you. History, geography, science, physics, DT, we offer all of them. So music, SHE, any of them. So if you're interested in those, you do your undergraduate degree and then you come to us then to do your secondary PGCE. Little bit about some of the tutors that teach on those courses. So we're all research active. We're highly specialist, and as Hannah has really lovely said, she said that we're supportive tutors. So all of us have been teachers. Some people actually work at the university part-time and then still work in schools the other time as well. So we're all very current and knowledgeable. The course itself is really high quality. All of the teaching courses themselves are really high quality. They're all creative and engaging, and as Hannah explained to you, there's very much a hands-on expectation in our sessions. So it's not just us lecturing to you about how to do it, we get you doing it and having a go yourself. And then here we have a broad range of school experience placements. So we make sure that you visit a range of schools. So that maybe you go to a small rural primary school for one of your placements, then we would make sure that you got experience in a large, perhaps in a city school. And we sort all of your placements out for you. Hannah mentions about our placement team. So we organise where you're going to go, what year group you're going to be in, how you're going to get there. We organise all of that for you, and our team are amazing at making sure it's suitable. A little bit more now about the undergraduate degree. So this is the 3-year degree that gives you your qualified teacher status. This is some of the things that we look at. The top box there are the modules. So we look at 5 modules in year 1, 5 in year 2, and 5 in year 3. And they progress throughout the 3 years. So you'll notice they're similar in what they're called, and we just build on those throughout the years. And then we have your placements and the bottom boxes there. So in the first year, we normally have a 2-week placement, and we do them in blocks. So you go in for a whole 2 weeks, and then we have a 4-week placement later on in the year. We don't expect you to go in for that first placement and be able to teach all singing, all dancing with 35-year-olds. That would be very unfair, wouldn't it? So we actually make sure that we support you. It's very you start off, we support you, you teach alongside the teacher, and then you actually have a go at teaching yourself. So don't worry, we wouldn't dump you in the deep end. And you would have seen fly up in the corner there are no exams on our course. So we don't assess our students through any exams. So it's all through coursework, which Hannah talks about, and through your placements. We also do presentations, we do debates as part of our assessments as well, and they are all supported by tutors. So you're able to go and have assignment tutorials with your tutor, help plan your assignments, give you some guidance on what sort of readings you might do. So most people take a big sigh of relief to know that there isn't any exams. So hopefully you're feeling that. And then at the bottom you see there the school experience runs all the way through, because obviously that's vital that we get you out in schools, putting what we've taught you in those modules into practice. This is just a little bit more detail on each of the 5 modules that we look at. Professional practice is all of the things that doesn't fit under a subject really. So learning how to manage tricky children in your classroom, learning how to manage a TA in your classroom, a teaching assistant, learning how to differentiate the work so that it's suitable for the needs of all of the children in your class. So that's our professional practice. Teachers as researchers is looking at the education climate currently, talking about what is happening in schools, the curriculum, etc. Developing self is all about you and making sure you look after yourself as a teacher. Really important. I'm sure you're very aware of how hard your teachers work. And it's really important that we promote yourself and your mental health and well-being right from the start of your training. We then do the core subjects, maths, English, science and PE, and then we have the foundation subjects as well. So music, geography, history, DT. So we cover every subject that would be taught in the primary school. The PGCE course, so this remember is the 9-month or a year if you like course. that you would do to get your qualified teacher status once you've done a degree. It's basically set up the same. So module A is in the first year, module B, module C, and you build up throughout the terms. You build up what you are learning. Okay, so the modules pretty much cover the same thing, but it's obviously much more content. You still do the same subjects, so you still look at the core subjects and all of the foundation subjects, but obviously it's just in a smaller space of time. So some of you are probably wondering, well, what do I need to do now to be able to go and be a primary school teacher? So this is focusing on the degree course that we offer. So you are required to get 112 UCAS points from your A-levels or your equivalent level 3 qualifications. So some of you might be doing BTEC or equivalents, then we still recognise those as well. And in fact, we find quite a lot of our students who have done BTEC have already had a lot of experience in schools. We ask for a minimum of 4 GCSEs. And we do ask that those are maths, English language and a science. So it could be you've done your triple award, or it might be that you've done a double award. As long as you have got 4, that's all we asked for. If for some reason you didn't have, or you haven't managed to get one of your GCSEs, we do offer an equivalency qualification that you can do with us in order for you to be able to get a place on the course. The A-levels, that we that you have, we don't really mind. It doesn't matter if they are unrelated perhaps to primary teaching. So it might be you've got a sociology or a psychology. Actually, they're really good as well, because you'll learn lots about theories that would be relevant to teaching. So any A-levels are absolutely fine. Any BTEC or level 3 qualification is absolutely fine. If you don't quite get the 112 points, please don't worry, because if you have a really good reference, if your application is good, we do interview our students, and if we're happy with your interviews, then we may offer you a place with less points than that. And that happens sometimes in clearing, you may have heard about. So that's when people get their results and they perhaps haven't got quite what it is that's needed. School experience is desirable, so you don't have to have been into a school to apply to be a teacher, but we ask you to, because it allows you to gain an understanding of the role of a teacher. The Department for Education requires all of you to complete a medical questionnaire when our students start the course, and a DBS, which I'm sure you've all heard about. So before starting any course to do with teaching, that is what we ask you to complete. The application process, so you apply for UCAS, and that's as soon as possible, and I'm sure your school will help you do that. I know lots of schools at the moment are currently looking through students' UCAS applications. We ask you to think really carefully about your personal statement. This is something we really do read. So your teachers might have been saying to you, your personal statement's really important. It is. We really read that. We want to know about you. You know, what is it that is why you're bringing you into teaching, or whichever course you're applying for? What is it about you that's going to make you a really good student on that course? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? What are your experiences? We really do value the time that you put into those personal statements. And then your reference. So usually is somebody from your school or college that fills in, that completes your reference. And again, these are something that we really look at as well. It's important that we get a good impression of you. And if we get that good impression of you, then we invite you for interview. And what we're looking for when we interview our students is a good standard of spoken and written English, because of course you're going to be a primary school teacher or a secondary teacher. Good professional skills, so being well prepared, confident, engaging and reflective. Good interpersonal skills, so as part of our interview we ask you to work in a group, really simple task, but we want to see how you interact with others. We look for you to be supportive and a good listener. We want you to have a realistic understanding of the role of the teacher. We don't want you starting the course under the illusion that being a teacher is you know, an amazing job, which of course it is, but it's also very tiring and it's also quite demanding. So we want you to have a realistic understanding of that and know what some of those challenges might be. I'm sure you can just ask your teacher and they'll be able to tell you what those challenges are. We also want you to have a current knowledge of primary education or secondary education, whichever you're applying for. So do go on Twitter. There's lots of information on there about education. Do go on the TES website. That gives you all the current issues in education at the moment. Just keep a lookout of stuff, just because we may ask you things like that in your interview as well, things that are currently happening. What should you do now? Well, we really recommend you come to the university. One of my colleagues describes the University of Worcester, and our course particularly, as like getting a hug every day, because we're a small community in Worcester, which of course you know Worcester, it's a city, but we're a small community within that city, and it really is so supportive, just like Hannah said. So come up to the university, get a feel for it, meet some of the tutors, chat to some of the students that we have already on the course. They can tell you all sorts of things that as a tutor I perhaps am not aware of. Get some experience if you can, because it gives you that realistic understanding of what being a teacher is. Talk to teachers. You might have teachers in your family. You can talk to your teachers in your school. Maybe you might have people you know who are already on the course. Read around the news and education. I've already mentioned that. Sign up to educational blogs and Twitter feeds. Twitter's amazing, really amazing for finding out about everything in education. Develop your awareness and your knowledge of the early years framework and the national curriculum. So all of those documents are available online. Just have a look at those, see what's expected that you have to teach, whether you're in an early years classroom or in a 5 to 11 year classroom, or in secondary indeed. And then just do your best at whatever you're doing. Don't panic if it doesn't quite go right, because like I've already mentioned to you, we interview our students, and from our interviews, we are able straight away to see if there's potential for you to be a teacher. And to us, that's what's really important. So if you don't quite get those grades, we look back at your interview paperwork, and whoever it is, the tutor that's been with you has mentioned, how engaging you were and how passionate you were, then that's what really interests us. But do work as best as you can as well at the moment, and apply early. There are lots of benefits for applying early. One of those is it just gives you a little bit of reassurance coming to the university, having your interview, being offered a place. It just helps you perhaps feel a little bit more confident, and then you can concentrate on your studies that you're doing at the moment. We actually are slightly different on the teaching courses because we don't close. So UCAS will be sending emails out to everybody now, actually, saying UCAS is closing in February. Make sure you've got your applications in. However, teaching courses still keep recruiting. So last year we were still recruiting in August. So people can apply late, but we do recommend applying early, just in case we got full on our numbers. We wouldn't want you to miss out. Here are some key contacts for you, and then I've finished, and I'll be happy to take your questions. So Caroline Thomas-Meredith is the course leader for the degree course with the qualified teacher status. There's myself under there, Karen Bubb, so I'm the year 1 cohort lead. So I manage everything to do with ensuring that our first year students have a great first year, that they actually settle in well, because we do find some students take a while to settle in, which is completely normal. So that's my role. Then we have Catherine, who is the PGCE course leader. Reese deals with the primary lead, and then Sarah Emerson is our secondary PGCE course leader, and she would be able to direct you to the more specific subjects if you were interested in finding out about those. So that, folks, is a brief overview of what we offer, and I am more than happy now to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Karen. That was absolutely brilliant. And I know that although this is, of course, very Worcester focused, because we asked you, if you could come and talk about that. A lot of the information you've given, of course, is generic.
Absolutely.
And students can find out from a range of of universities. But I think, as Karen suggested, there's no substitute for going, and we'd like you all to go along to Worcester Open Days, which I think you've got one coming up.
We have one on the 6th of February.
Yeah, fairly soon. So I really would encourage all students to attend an open day and start early, so that any questions that start to come up can be answered, and you can get a good feel for it, and you can discuss with Karen and the others members of staff anything really to do with, you know, thinking about the actual course that you want to follow and what you need to have under your belt between now and then. So
Absolutely.
That's really good. We're getting a few questions through, and I've got a few that we had in advance. I can just see here, Summer's asked, please could you write the website names you suggested for researching education?
Of course.
But that would be really useful. And if it's not online, then we can certainly circulate those with your presentation, if that's okay.
No problem. What I will do is I will add, oh, thank you, Faye, for adding that in.
Yeah,
I will add a slide into my presentation of some useful places to go for finding out some research. That I will add it in, and then I'll send it over to you.
Thank you. And I can see that Evie has asked, do we need to do a teaching course to work in nursery?
Okay, Evie, so in a nursery, you can have children from months old up until they come to school age. So you don't have to be qualified to be a nursery worker. You might go into the nursery, you might do a BTEC whilst you're there. They offer lots of apprenticeships whilst you're there. However, if you're going to be a teacher in a nursery, then you do need to have a degree or a PGCE. So you could be an assistant, a nursery assistant. However, to be a teacher, you do have to have a degree. So hopefully that answers your question for that one.
That's lovely. And Summer says, thank you. Also, when do you suggest going to open days? For example, obviously they're in year 12, but I think, as we just mentioned, the earlier the better, really.
Yeah, so my son actually at the moment is in year 12, and so we've started having a look at courses just online, having a little bit of a look, finding out what courses that he might be interested in. And I would suggest sort of moving into the summer, if you can go, if you've got a little bit of sort of time in school where it's not so busy, you can go and have a look around some of the universities this year still. It will help you then, because when you get to September, you will be applying, you'll be doing your applications, you'll be writing your supporting statements, and it does get quite busy trying to visit. You could be visiting 6 universities, and it does get quite busy in terms of you travelling to those different places. So we have open days throughout the year, so you don't have to wait until you're year 13, basically.
That's really helpful, and I think certainly from our perspective, we would encourage students to visit as many universities as possible to make those decisions based on having experience and a feel for the places as well as the courses online. So absolutely. I think we would encourage that, and from a student perspective, they are allowed a certain number of days off in order to do that. And whilst we want them to be in the classroom as much as possible, that is certainly something that they can apply for. So that's no problem. I'm just looking at something about the work experience process, and Faye has kindly put on there very helpfully that the work experience information from careers perspective and how we can help you find work experience is all there actually on the website, and I think Faye's put a link to that, so that hopefully would be helpful. There is more information on the teaching pathway as well, so we would encourage, Karen, as you say, in-person work experience wherever possible. Yeah. And I think there's no substitute for being in the classroom, is there?
Not at all. Not at all. And actually, we have had quite a few students that have done some work experience at schools when they've been in year sort of 12 and 13, and then have continued with that experience as they've moved into university, because Hannah mentioned Wednesdays we try to keep free. So a lot of our students have kept in touch with schools, and they go into schools on a Wednesday to help with various things. Some of our students have been employed actually by their work experience schools, and they go in to do after school clubs. That's something you can do whilst you're still in year 12 and 13, is go and volunteer to help at a hockey club or a gymnastics club or an art club, which takes place after school.
That's really helpful. And a lot of our students also perhaps might be taking perhaps sports groups outside of college, you know, and be teaching and coaching in those areas.
That's
and all
right.
of that experience helps support their applications.
Oh, goodness,
So,
yeah.
yeah, Ellie's just put, thank you, this has been very useful. Am I correct in thinking that to be a secondary school teacher, you have to do a degree before the PGCE, but to be a primary school teacher, you can just do that QTS 3-year course?
That is absolutely right, Ellie. Yeah, we have many students who know from, you know, sort of a young age that they want to be a primary school teacher. And for those students, we recommend, well, just do the degree that gets you to be a primary school teacher straight after. Some of our students, perhaps at sort of your age now, are unsure what they want to do when, you know, when they finally finish university, but they know at the moment they're really interested in art or geography. So what we would recommend then is do a degree in the subject that you like to do. And then if you still would like to be a teacher, once you've done that degree, then come and have a look and have a think about doing a PGCE.
And I think if you're unsure as well about whether you want to do secondary or primary, because some people, as you say, know from a very sort of early stage, but if you don't, then we would really recommend getting some work experience in both environments to make a good judgment. And we can help students gain those placements. We do have some very sort of friendly local primary schools where we've done experience before. It's been very difficult during the pandemic to get on, you know, hands-on work experience of any kind, and teaching has been particularly in that bracket, but it is opening up, and we do have receptive schools, so students can either find their own placement or we can help them. So as Faye has put in the chat there, there's lots of information on the pathways and also on the website and on Moodle about how to do that. But if not, I'd ask students either to pop into careers or to email us on the careers at email.
Right.
So I'm just going to, as we haven't got anything else through, I've got a couple of questions that we were asked in advance. So one student has asked, is it necessary to have a degree in, for example, English literature to become an English teacher at a secondary school?
So yes, it would be. You would need to have a degree in or close to the subject that you were looking to be a teacher of. Yes. In essence, that's an easy answer.
It is, isn't it? That's really helpful. You've talked about a college into primary school teaching. What A-level grades do you require to get on a teaching degree? Now, you've spoken about the UCAS points at Worcester. Do you think that that's fairly across the board? Is that the sort of expected grades do you experience across the universities?
Yes, so we offer 112, that's our points, and that is based on what the market offers. So we obviously keep an eye on all of the universities that offer similar courses to us, and everybody is pretty much about the same. Some of them do go up a little if we think about some of the sort of old-fashioned red brick universities. So if we're thinking about going over to Oxford, they would offer, they would expect more points. However, generally, it's about 112 points.
That's really helpful, thank you. And then the final question that I've got here is there a way to go into teaching without going to university? And of course, things have changed over the last sort of few years in terms of applying for being a teacher. Can you just outline any of that experience that you have, Karen?
Of course, yes. So what we would be looking for, because we do offer pathways to get into teaching via work experience in a school. So we have lots of people that have been perhaps classroom assistants in either secondary school or in primary schools for many years, and they are really experienced people who will be valuable to the teaching profession. So what we ask those students to do is go for our direct entry route. And so what we ask them to do is they will be learning on the job, but be completing their course alongside working in the school. Now, we have certain schools that we use for this, and this is the case for most universities. So we'll have a certain number of schools that take these students who work on the job, and they get their PGCE whilst they're doing their on-the-job work, if you like. There isn't currently a way that you can gain a degree while still in school. So this would only be for somebody who's got a degree already and then would need to do the PGCE. So every teaching course that you go on to will require you to have a degree and then to do your PGCE, whether you do it based through the school route or through a university route.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. And Summer has said there that it's been very useful and enjoyable, which is great. And obviously, hopefully, these things are all important when making these decisions. And the earlier that students know this information, they can go and research and also experience and talk to people, because there's no substitute for talking to students when you go to an open day, or indeed to somebody like yourself. And I think that's a really helpful way forward. One
of my biggest tips would be, and again, I'm thinking about this from my son's point of view, is yes, you want to find a course that interests you, especially if you want to be a teacher and you're thinking about which route you're going to take, but go to the university, meet the tutors, because you need to feel that you would be able to have a professional relationship with those tutors. You need to feel that they would be there to support you throughout your time at university. And, Hannah was fantastic in saying about the support that she's had from her tutors. And that's something that we really promote that, because we know that, students can have highs and lows, but especially with the pandemic, we've had to support students in all different sorts of ways. So if you get that feel when you go and speak to tutors, and if you sort of think, wow, they're really personable, I feel like I could relate to them, then I would definitely be thinking that, that would be the university for you.
That's brilliant. Ethan has just asked, to become a college or sixth form teacher, year 12 and 13, do you also need to complete an undergraduate degree under PGCE?
Yes, you do, Ethan. Yes, and again, it would need to be in the subject that you had that you were looking to specialise in.
That's great. And Leo has asked, if you did a degree at a different university because of a specific course, can you still apply to do the PGCE at Worcester? So you can actually then do your degree elsewhere if that's right for them, and then come along to Worcester for that final year.
Yeah, absolutely, Leo. And what we have is perhaps some students go off as far away from home as possible to do their undergraduate degree, have a wonderful independent life, and then actually decide, do you know what, I might move home and do my postgraduate certificate. I might move home for my PGCE, and they come back to Worcester and do their PGCE with us.
That's brilliant. And Connie's asked, for lecturing, would you need to teach for several years beforehand alongside additional qualifications?
It's a really good question, Connie. So I'll tell you what I did. I was a teacher, primary school teacher, for nearly 15 years in the classroom. And alongside being in the classroom, I did my master's degree, which isn't always expected that you would have one, but it is a desirable qualification to have. And then I got some experience being a lecturer, and then I became a lecturer, and then you actually have to do a PGCE, but actually in higher education. So I've had to do a PGCE, even though I'm a qualified teacher for primary, to make me a qualified teacher for higher education. And there's also the same for further education. So if you wanted to go and work in a college, then you could do your PGCE in further education as well.
That's really interesting, and actually I'm not overly familiar with that sector, so that's really interesting, and we all continue to learn as we go along. Are there any other questions from students? If you can type anything in the chat now. Otherwise, I'm going to sort of draw things to a close. It's been really, really interesting. And what I would ask is, if there are any questions from students following this, perhaps we can forward them to you, Karen. Or indeed, we could ask Hannah if she had any input as well, because I think it is really useful to speak to a current student who's got the experience of Worcester and of their hands-on experience in the classroom as well. So that's really good.
If you've got a number of students that would like to come and have a look around the university, to come and perhaps chat to some tutors and to some students, just let me know, because we could arrange for you to have a sort of a personal tour. If there was a certain number of you, we could put that on for you, no problem.
Well, that's really helpful. Thank you very much. And perhaps we can offer that out to students via when we submit the presentation onto the MS Teams. Thank you, Karen. Well, if there aren't any further questions, I'd just like to thank Karen, and obviously via yourself, Karen, to Hannah as well.
Yeah.
And thank you to the students. Obviously, you're all part of the teaching pathways, and we will be having a number of different talks as we go through over the next few months. There's lots of information on MS Teams, there's lots of information on Unifrog and all sorts of other areas which we will be highlighting when we send this presentation around. But continue to look on your MS Teams from the pathway and continue to ask questions and experience at the universities. So thank you very much indeed, Karen, and thank you to the students.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, and if you've got anything else, do message. Thank you, Karen. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Louise. Bye.